Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast. My name is Jim Hodges, and I'm Research Director at Heavy Reading, and I'm going to be hosting today's session. So in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing hosting operational support systems, or OSS functions, in the public cloud. And joining me today from Amdocs is Steve Plain. Steve is Director of Product and Services Strategy at Amdocs Open Network. Welcome, Steve. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yes, hi, Jim.
So, Steve, traditionally, the public cloud was regarded as really pretty much unable to meet the performance, security, and even the data governance requirements of, mission-critical business and operational support systems used by service providers and the media industry. But, there seems to be now an increased support of this. And, in the past, when there was things like the need to increase agility and operational efficiencies, it was kind of felt that the public cloud wouldn't support those requirements in terms of agility and operational. But as I said, we're now seeing a growing number of CSPs kind of looking to migrate OSSs to, public clouds to really achieve these scale and agility objectives. So, the advantages of running applications on public clouds are pretty clear. Scalability, agility, essentially capacity on demand, and of course, resource optimization. But traditionally, as I said, CSPs didn't really consider deploying their OSS there. But that, as I said, seems to be really changing pretty quickly. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, why are CSPs now more willing to deploy their OSS on public clouds?
Yeah, it's a good point, Jim. I see a lot of change in this space as well. Even when I look just at the telco themselves, I see sort of a two-speed journey there. I see the IT business moving a bit faster than the OSS or network business on their adoption of cloud. And I think generally, the closer you get to the network, the more conservative the telco becomes. And even wider than that, I think if you look at telco within the wider industry, you see it being slightly slower to adopt than other market sectors. I think telco generally as a sector, or the communication sector, is more of a follower than a leader in adoption of cloud. It's more cautious. And I think a lot of that's driven by their concern to protect the high service availability they see or need to deliver to their customers. But I do see trickle down. I see sort of three tiers. I see, firstly, the cloud becoming more widely adopted in industry with many public success stories, proven security, proven reliability. And then telco IT business is moving a little bit faster now, and we see announcements there, AT&T and Azure, Vodafone with AWS, Orange and Google, for example. And then lastly, we're starting to see the first, arrival of telco OSS moving into the cloud. And there's Vodafone that made public announcements with Google, with OSS and analytics, TEF Germany with AWS, and Deutsche Telekom with Azure. So why more willing? I think it's just perceived risk in cloud of adopting cloud is reducing. It's just simply more proven now.
Right. Yeah. So the pretty much maturation of the public cloud. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
There's obviously a number of different options to consider when migrating applications to the cloud. Things like rehosting, replatforming, refactoring. I'm wondering, what options do Amdocs customers prefer when it comes to deploying their OSSs or OSS on the public cloud?
Yeah, you mentioned a few options there, Jim. So like rehosting, that's simple lift and shift, minimal benefits, but simplest and do. So you just take the solution and just deposit it, rehosting it in the cloud. And then there's replatforming, and there, you're trying to take a advantage of some of those cloud native services, say data storage, might be moving off of Oracle, for example. And then finally, there's refactoring, where you re-engineer the app to be properly cloud native and you adopt microservices architecture, for example. And you get more benefits as you move further down that list. But one thing to bear in mind is that if you've got products in that mix, in your solution mix, then you're often reliant on that product vendor's roadmap to when you can move to each of those steps. Staying on-prem can be really attractive. If you've made a big investment in hardware and it's already meeting your expected operational needs, then you probably want to delay your move to cloud. And maybe you've got some really busy apps that have very chatty between the front and back end. Then if you put those on the cloud, you really need some low latency comms, say less than 20 milliseconds before you move them. Otherwise, you'll see heavy performance penalties. And if you look at the cloud, that target, then where you've got apps that are bursty in their use of resources, or maybe it's a commercially unproven service that you're just rolling out, then that consumption-driven approach to the cloud can be really attractive and keep your costs down. And one thing that often comes up is reliability, and it's a hot topic of many discussions around OSS and network on the cloud. Our experience so far is we're not really seeing any severe issues for OSS. And there can be many benefits. You get resilient solutions, for example, architecting those. You get geo-redundancy and load balancing very easily within a cloud scenario. And you don't need all that standby infra, which is highly costly, but not used very much.
Interesting.
And you can see there's many routes, and you need to choose the best route for each of your applications. You don't need to do it all in one go. You can sort of do a multiple steps, bit by bit approach, which can be quite attractive. And also, I think you need to recognize that not every app is always going to end up fully cloud native, on the cloud. Maybe it will only get as far as, for example, replatforming, or some just rehosting. And to your direct question, you said, what are people doing out there? Our experience is that refactoring is the main approach, but we still see a fair bit of the lift and shift approach and some replatforming as well to complement it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm seeing as well. I think refactoring, when we think about 5G services or cloud native, those are pretty much kind of aligned with that model. But I think you're right. It depends on the service, the competitive landscape. There's a number of different factors. I mean, the good news is that customers have different approaches that they can use depending on the service.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jim. I think it's mixed, and you've just got to choose the journey for your target solution that you're taking to market.
Right. So I guess from your experience, what key challenges do service providers face as they deploy OSS in the cloud?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I think it's funny, isn't it? We often talk about the challenges rather than the benefits almost in this area. I've got sort of a list of 6 that always seem to come up. I've got balance of people, processes, and technology, unexpected costs, compliance, impact, one size not fitting all, and best of breed. And just a couple of words about each of those. Balance of people, process, and technology. I think with cloud, people often latch onto the technology, and yet those the people in process side can be as important. Unexpected costs. Cloud measures things differently. It's a consumption-based model, so you need to look at your solutions differently to see how the costs are impacted. Compliance, data sovereignty. Each country, different rules. Each service provider, different policies. Each cloud vendor has different capabilities, so you need to choose wisely there. I've got impact on the wider landscape. You put one, OSS is a very connected world. There are many applications and they all interoperate. You put one in the cloud, it affects the others. It can be around a simple thing like this reporting. That's different and suddenly maybe more challenging. Communications behaviors, you've got comms that used to be all on-prem now going across between the cloud and the premise. And incident diagnosis, if something goes wrong, suddenly you've got different types of moving parts in your solution that you're looking at. One size doesn't fit all. Each app, different journey, different end state. And best of breed versus ASS, sort of the final one. On that one, it's just before on-prem, you chose the perfect app to solve your problem, or the perfect component, maybe a security component or a data storage component. In the cloud vendors manage services. You've got to make some compromises. There'll be some pluses and minuses, but they're likely to be acceptable because a wide area of adoption across many industries, but you've got to be ready to compromise. So, that's my long list of 6 there, Jim.
Okay, great. It's a very powerful list. Just one thing, maybe you can clarify. You mentioned the phrase "unexpected costs." Maybe you can provide, maybe provide a little more background on what you mean by that in a cloud context.
Sure, it's a good one, and it comes up, probably of all of them, it's the one that comes up often when we work with our customers. I think fundamentally, cloud vendors measure costs in a different way to on-prem. On-prem, it's about buying equipment and everything up front, and once it's installed and ready to go, you've invested. With cloud, it's more of a consumption model. As you use things, you pay for them, and I think it gets people to look at their application just in a completely different light, and maybe in a way they haven't measured before. So an example is transaction costs. So if you've got a fulfillment solution, it does activation, and maybe you didn't count the individual transactions and the individual data bytes that were going on to do those activation steps, and you need to in cloud. So that can be an unexpected surprise, and that whole on-prem, off-prem split. You pay often in cloud vendors to move data from the cloud world into the on-premise or off the cloud, and that you have a choice where you draw that line. The activation component. Do I put that in the cloud or do I put it on-prem? And those choices directly affect the costs that you incur looking further down the line. So it's architectural decisions you have control over, but you have to understand them and plan for them in advance and try not to get caught out with them once you're in production and running a high volume live system.
Interesting. So there's a number of considerations, obviously. So how does Amdocs help your service provider customers address these challenges when they start migrating their OSS to the public cloud?
So as we've sort of mentioned, I think migrating OSS is pretty complicated. There are many options, many risks, but also many benefits. And I think one of the biggest things Amdocs brings is its proven experience. We've worked with many operators. We've worked with many different products and solutions, and we've got many production solutions into the cloud already. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're in a really good place to guide operators on this cloud journey. We know how to select the best journey or the best route for each application and solution. We know how to apply the new cloud-native Neo product suite into that journey most effectively to get the best customer benefits as early as possible in the journey. We also can help with those trade-offs. We've seen these trade-offs between using, say, your own security solution and the cloud vendor solution. We've seen that already in multiple deployments, so we can recommend very easily to the customers, what they should be doing. And we know how to make best use of the different cloud vendors. We worked with Google, Azure, and AWS, so we know which ones may be a better fit for which particular scenario. And overall, I think we know how to set realistic expectations and therefore make sure that you can deliver on them. So I think, it's that good guidance that's key to getting OSS to the cloud, and we're in a great position to help the operators on that journey.
Okay. And one of the things, obviously, you're doing to help your customers on that journey is you've recently announced the availability of your new cloud-native next-gen OSS. Can you provide just a brief update on this and its kind of cloud deployment capabilities?
Yeah, sure, Jim. Yeah, we recently launched Neo, and it's a culmination of a cloud journey of our own. So Neo is a complete next-gen OSS portfolio, and it's ready to manage and orchestrate hybrid networks. And Neo includes a designer to manage the catalog of services and processes. We have catalog-driven orchestrators to run service and network lifecycles. We have an inventory, which can give you a new live view of the physical, logical, cloud, and virtual network functions, and even supporting inventory federation. And finally, we've got assurance, using ML to close that service lifecycle loop, so we can manage both the initial deployment, the ongoing updates in optimization, and finally the ceasing of the customer services. But it's all built on cloud native principles. So it's containerized, it's got microservices architecture, it supports DevOps, has AI and ML embedded, and built around open APIs from people like MEF and TMF. So, and maybe an important thing, it's cloud agnostic. So we support all three. So we're not tied to AWS, Azure, or Google. It's customer choice, which I think is really important.
Yeah, I agree. That is really important as we go forward, because there's obviously many different variations of what the public cloud can appear in terms of appearance. As part of that introduction of the next gen OSS, do you offer services to support moving OSS to the cloud?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jim, and I almost forgot about it there. So yes, we wrap a comprehensive set of services around our Neo platform. It's aimed at helping operators make these successful moves to the cloud. We do cloud consultancy from Kenzen, a sort of an Amdocs consulting company, do solution design and development, systems migration services, managed operations, DevOps, AIOps, and FinOps to help you optimize your use of cloud. And finally, we support that business transformation with new processes and reskilling of the operator's business. So in summary, I think it's a proven and comprehensive approach to the cloud, services and products to help provide that complete journey.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you've launched this product and you've been working with, as you said, your customers to help them with this, the migration of OS to the public cloud. Can you provide sort of some examples? We mentioned at the beginning some of the service providers that are looking and very much embracing the public cloud. Can you provide some examples of a service provider that you've worked with who have started to successfully deploy their OSS in the cloud?
Yeah, sure, Jim. As we said, got quite a few examples out there. So let's talk quickly about three. So in APAC, we're working with a tier one there that wanted to accelerate their new services to market and create a truly end-to-end digital customer experience, covering enterprise and consumer service orchestration and fulfillment. That was an AWS cloud first deployment strategy, and we got our products on the cloud with them over 5 years ago now. And since then, we've seen quite a lot of updates and enhancements. What's come out of that, for both us and the operator? I think we learned early about these unexpected costs again, where we saw just the volume of transactions around fulfillment was, sort of learning that we hadn't quite expected. And then, but some of the benefits that bubbled out that the service provider gained were really a lot of usage of this highly elastic cloud infrastructure, preventing big upfront investments and allowing them to just pay as they used. And also they benefited a lot from the cloud blue-green deployment upgrade approach, which just led to less downtime for them, which was highly valuable. Secondly, there was global satellite operator. Here they were going through a transformation process to modernize and automate their network platforms and deploying a new SD-WAN service. Target there was Azure. And we, on that one, we went through that process with them very successfully. And we actually started off by using what was the sort of generic Kubernetes solution from the Cloud Native CNCF, Cloud Native Foundation. And we've now migrated to Azure's proprietary AKS Kubernetes environment. And what we found there is that we've seen massive improvements in resource utilization, better performance, and an overall easier level of operations, which has been slightly unexpected, but obviously very welcome for both us and the service provider. And finally, let's talk briefly about a European tier one, where there, interestingly, what we started with as a target for them, which was a cloud native deployment, changed. It just wasn't quite what they expected after we started working with them. They wanted to move into fiber broadband, and they wanted to put the new orchestration stack from Amdocs, including inventory, onto this public cloud. But as we got into a detailed cost analysis of the solution, it became apparent that actually that might not be the best answer. And in that case, we actually ended up with a target of putting it on private cloud in an in-country data center and developed a SaaS-based business model with them. And that's how it's now been successfully deployed. So again, that learnings along the way, and it's quite interesting what comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are three very different, I guess, business profiles. But it's interesting that they've all seen a lot of value in using OSS in the cloud. I'm just wondering, given they are different models, are there still maybe some common characteristics that all three of these customers have sort of relied on to make them successful as they've migrated OSS to the public cloud?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Jim. And thinking about it, I think three come to mind. I think strategy, balance, and planning are the key words I would use. Strategy, I think what we see as a common thread is a clear top-down company strategy to embrace cloud, and they've got a clear desired outcome. Why is that important? Well, it's going to cloud has a wide impact, and you need senior management support to make that successful. Balance. It's not just a technology problem, it's people and processes. So you've got to look across all three areas with equal importance. And finally, planning. Yeah, each app journey will be different and multi-stepped. It hits the wider systems real estate, has cross-company impacts, it's complicated. So you've got to plan well in detail. Oh yeah, and that reminds me, just the fourth, of course, and that's working with Amdocs. Seriously, I think experience does matter, and that experience helps customers in planning and executing a successful cloud journey, ensuring those expectations are met and the benefits delivered.
Interesting. Yeah. So excellent points, excellent summary as well. So, as Steve, this is really an important topic as we move forward, as all services start to migrate to the public cloud. It's really an interesting time for service providers and to be following this journey. So thanks for joining us today and providing your insights on the drivers, the opportunities, the benefits, and the challenges of migrating OSS to the public cloud.
Thanks, Jim. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.